Alright, I'm kicking off a series where I take a look back at an underrated LEGO theme from the distant past of 1999. Let's start at the beginning, with the first set in the line, set 8500, the Fire Slizer. Or is it Torch, the Throwbot? Okay, let's stop right there. Before I get into the sets, let's clear up this thing before it gets too confusing. What exactly is the difference between a Slizer and a Throwbot? The answer to that? Nothing. Well, at least as far as the sets and the parts that you get in them are concerned. The real difference comes in the marketing, or to put it in a less cynical way, the stories surrounding these little robots. Not as deep as its eventual replacement Bionicles, the Slizers and Throwbots don't get movies or books. Instead, it had to settle for a few brief comic strips in order to put the skeleton of a story together. Let's start with the Slizers and their half of the story. Slizers was a name given to the theme in Europe and Australia. These robots lived on a planet called Planet Slizer. This strange world was broken up into 8 elemental-ish themed regions. Think of it as a giant Terry's chocolate orange, but the segments are fire, city, jungle, ocean, mountain, ice, and energy flavoured instead of orange. Not sure it's safe to have the jungle and fire areas right next door to each other. The Judge Slizer operated out of a dome on the North Pole, connecting the 7 other areas. The dome hosts disc-throwing challenges used to settle disputes between the Slizers. These aren't usually fair, with the Judge Slizer often favouring his cronies, jungle, rock and energy. This leaves the fire, water, city and ice Slizer feeling robbed. Yes, those are the names of the characters, as unimaginative as they are. Every so often though, things would get so bad between the two sides that they would pull their powers and parts together to create giant combiner Slizers to battle each other. Aside from squabbling with each other, the Slizers had to contend with elemental-themed monsters. These creatures were never made into sets, but they can be seen on the packaging of the canisters and on some of the throwing discs. Quite how Fire thinks a flamethrower is going to stop a monster made of fire is anybody's guess. The Slizers can also enjoy scenic tours of their respective areas in their transport pods, or, in City's case, get stuck in rush hour traffic constantly. Things take a dramatic turn on Planet Slizer when an asteroid wipes out the energy, jungle and mountainous areas of the planet, along with the Judge's dome. Rising up from the destruction of half the planet comes a new form of Slizers, mutants that somehow survive the asteroid impact. Flare and Spark are a nice addition to the canister-based sets, but things get really wild with the addition of Blaster, a mutant Slizer that seems to be made up of Jungle and Judge, given the distinctive half-and-half face printing that we get. In my own headcanon, it seems fitting that Judge would betray and tear apart his teammates in order to survive this catastrophe. He even goes one step further, using Flare and Spark to beef himself up into an even more huge Slizer called Dynamo. With the odds stacked against the good team of Slizers, they need all the help they can get. Fortunately, that help arrives in the form of Millennium, either a rad little biker robot, or a huge hulking robot with big wheels for boots. The two Slizers eventually meet in a throwdown dubbed Battle of the Big Bots. Who wins? Well, that's up to you. By this point, LEGO had already moved on to concentrating on its next Technic theme, the Robo Riders. The cliffhanger remains unresolved to this very day. So, how do the US and Canada's Throwbots version of the story differ from the Slizers version? First off, the setting. Instead of the bots being located on one singular planet, they can be found defending their own planets, once again appropriately themed to their element. I can't seem to find any art depicting these 8 separate planets, either in comic book form or on the throwing discs. The Judge also might be needed to help the Throwbots get out of some legal trouble, when you realise that in some of the marketing material, the team are called the Guardians of the Galaxy. Can't imagine the Marvel heroes being able to take out these 8 robots, but I'd be open to seeing them try. Regardless, the name didn't stick around for very long, a little bit like the Throwbots storyline. The bots do mostly the same stuff that the Slizers do, only this time the robots have much cooler names. Amazon, Granite, and another Marvel link, Electro, are improvements on the European names for these characters. Judge is now called Jet, which is the only downgrade in my opinion. The good team also get new names. Sub, Torch, Ski and Turbo are once again a step up from their Slizer names. When it comes time for the mutant part of the story, and the second wave of sets, the multiple planets disappear, and the story essentially merges and becomes the same as the Slizers version. Why this happened, I'm not sure. maybe it was too unbelievable that 4 asteroids would wipe out 4 different planets that just so happened to be where the evil Throwbots lived. I also imagine it was much easier to only print one version of events onto the new throwing discs that would be included in the sets. So, which version of events is better? Which is canon? Which version of the theme is the superior one? Well, clearly the Slizers benefits from a more consistent setting and narrative, but its naming convention for its characters is a little dull in comparison to the US and Canadian version of events. But honestly, it doesn't matter. With a theme like this that's just the suggestion of a story, it's up to you. Sure, if you want a fleshed out and more lore-heavy story, you have Bionicles for that. But Slizers and Throwbots gives you a few ideas, and then throws you into a sandbox to do what you like. But please, don't be shy. Let me know what you think about each of the storylines. I'll be back next time to have a look at that first Slizer set. Or Throwbots, whichever one you prefer. Until then, let me know what you think, and come back for the next one.